Hello, and welcome to His Lens, My Image podcast. And I am your host, Myesha Price. Thank you so much for joining in on this conversation. And I pray that as going forward, that there is something that is said, that's something that a conversation with someone that we'll have as a guest is something and some tools that you can walk away with that's going to help you be your authentic self. I am just so excited about walking out this new journey with you guys. This podcast is a safe place for where you are welcome. And as we learn how to walk out this purpose and be our authentic self and live life on purpose, I am so intentional about living life with purpose, with meaning, and not just living haphazardly, but living it and knowing and having a goal in mind with everything that I do. You know, sometimes we're not, things are not that we grow up with and that we learn some things we learn along the way. But I know that as we begin to mature and evolve in our lives, things change for us. Our perspectives change. Sometimes our perspectives are a shift when someone dies in our family that was close to us. Sometimes it's the loss of a job. Sometimes it's just, I know for a lot of people, when COVID hit, it shaped our minds to look at things and see what's important and what's not. And learned how to value the things that are of importance to us. So this is why one of the reasons why I started this podcast was because I found that a lot of times we are in positions where we don't allow ourselves to be who we are because we're so concerned about what other people think we are and who they think we should be, but never really focusing and hone on who God wants us to be. So those are the things we will dive into as we go about on this journey in this podcast. There's going to be numerous guests from all different walks of life just coming to share their story, share their journey with us, because I believe in the power that what one person has experienced can be a blessing to someone else to let us know that we're not in this thing alone. So this podcast is for those who desire to live life on purpose and to walk out this thing we call life as visionaries. Some people got their little cliche groups. That's fine. But I feel like those who attach themselves and connect with this podcast, you are visionaries. So I want to welcome you visionaries to the club. Welcome you to the transformation of life, to look at your life through a different perspective, through a different lens, and see yourself the way God sees you. With that, I want to say, before we jump into today's conversation, let me take some time to explain where the name comes from. I know people are like, well, where's His Lens, My Image? So basically, the title comes from is a long time ago, I used to always be wondering and be thinking, and God would lay stuff on my heart about what He wanted me to do and showing me things. And sometimes life would really take a toll on me and I would feel incompetent to get the task done. Or, I battled with low self-esteem growing up, and you always worried about, I wonder, am I dressed right? Or do I look right? Or does things feel right? But when it's all said and done, for me, I had to find that the only real opinion that mattered about who I was God's opinion. And if I can see myself the way He sees me through His lens, then guess what? That's the best lens to be reflected from, because God sees my flaws. He sees my imperfections. He sees me when I don't have makeup on, when my hair ain't done, when the clothes ain't right, when it's just you at your raw self of you being who you are. He still loves you. He still loves you. In spite of all of that, God still loves you. So when I thought about the name of this podcast, I was like, what I'm going to call it. And He kept resonating that with me. His Lens, My Image. Because in order for us to be our authentic self, we got to be able to see what our Creator has designed us to be. So if He's designed us to be this way, that's the purpose and plan that He has for us. And it's up to us to live out that purpose. And how do we live it out? By reflecting back to the person who created us. When I look at that, it allows me to dive into the word. And when I look at Proverbs 18:21, the word says that the power of life and death are in our tongue. So we got to be careful what we say and how we feel and what we say about others, because guess what? Those things have power. So if you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm not pretty, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not qualified enough, oh, this will never happen for me, oh, I could never start that business, oh, I could never write that song, oh my God, I will never be that model because I think I'm too fat or I'm too skinny. No, you are perfect just the way you are. And with you being who you are, God can use you right then and there for what you have. We have everything inside of us that we need to be prosperous in this earth. It's up to us to use the tools that we have in order to walk out this life. So for today, we're going to talk about taking a step. And I know that sounds simple, but for some people, that is extremely hard. For me, like even with this podcast, this wasn't on my agenda at all. Like talking to people, I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person, and I don't really care to be in the forefront, but all the occupations that I seem to have seems to put me in the forefront. Like, I'm like, okay, God, so, give me the task, let me go do the work behind the scenes, but then you find yourself, oh, I want you to write this song, and then, oh, here I am making an album. Hold up, wait a minute, bro. That's not what we discussed. But it's like everything that he's gifted me to do is pulling me out of my comfort zone. And it's challenging me to not be scared of doing things that are new. Sometimes that is so terrifying to do things that are new. We're so comfortable in the way we live and how we operate and how we go about things. But God's like, no, I got more in you that I want to pull out of you. Your purpose in this earth is not yet fulfilled. So it's up to us to allow those things. When you say, I know I used to hear people sing that song, Lord, I'm available to you. My will I give to you. I'll do what you want me to do. Guess what? Be careful what you ask for. And then, I give myself away. Yeah, that's cute, but it's not fun when it starts happening. When God's like, oh, you're surrendering yourself to me? Great. I like it. And then all hell breaks loose in your life. You're like, oh, this don't match what you said you were going to do. Like I said, I was surrendering to you. I didn't say DeRay say hell in my life. That's not a part of it. But that's a part of the journey. That pressure is applied to pull out the best in us. Pressure is applied when jewels have to get the best finery on them. It's that pressure has to be applied. And the same kind of pressure that is applied for a gem to be at its best clarity is the same kind of pressure that God applies to us to pull out the best in us, because he knows we have it in us. And just because you've never experienced it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. Doesn't mean that it's going to be something, sometimes we talk ourselves out of things. Like we find ourselves in doing something like, oh, you build up the energy like, okay, good. I'm going to write this book. Woo! Lord, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to do it. You get the momentum, you make the steps, you start writing. And the next thing you know, you go on social media and you see somebody writing a book about the same thing you writing. And right then and there, you like, oh man, I can't do this because somebody else is already doing it. And he's like, guess what? I don't care if they're writing their book on the same topic. Guess what? Your perspective and their perspectives is two different perspectives about the same situation. And who they are assigned to reach is not who you're assigned to reach. So don't get timid when you see somebody else already operating in a lane in which he's sending you down, because you're not assigned to the same people that they're assigned to. And I believe so much that a lot of times we find ourselves stopping and not doing the things that God has called us to do because we're so concerned about what other people may think. Be like, oh, they copycat. Oh, this person doing it and there they go doing it after them. No. It just ironically that both people haven't been doing the same thing at the same time. Now, granted, there are some people who are out there that are copycats, but don't let that stop you from making the step. That's all it takes of us, is taking one step. For me, starting this podcast was taking a huge step for me because, like I said, I ain't one for in front of no cameras. I'm good. Although I know how to smile and give the best pose and giggle and do all of that, but the inner part of me is I'm really a loner. Like I can really be at home and be by myself and not be bothered at all. I remember when I lived in North Carolina, I lived there for several years, and it used to be times when I wouldn't even come out the house. I would have food delivered to the house, groceries delivered. Only time I would come outside is to bring to go bring the trash out, or I was on my way to serve at church on a Saturday night. But other than that, the neighbors had forgot I lived there. They thought I had moved. I wasn't concerned. I'm content with being by myself. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing because you'll revert and you won't allow yourself to connect with other people. And for me, the biggest thing is stepping out of that space and interacting with folks. Yes, my day-to-day job, it causes me to interact with people all day. And people like, I don't understand how you're a loner when you're always around people. But sometimes I just like to decompress and I like to just be by myself just to process through my thoughts. But again, that's also a place where depression can soak in, and a place where suicide and loneliness, all that kind of stuff can start to seep in if you're not careful about the space that you're allowing yourself to stay in. So I'm very mindful and cognitive of it because I've been through a lot of therapy. I've done the work on myself, and I continuously do the work on myself to make sure that I'm being the best version of who I am and who God created me to be. So with everything in my life, I've learned how to step out, and it was either sink or swim. And sinking was not my objective. I never want to sink. It's like I have the fear of failing and I don't want to fail. So I give it my best foot forward with anything that I do. I do things as if I've already arrived, not like I'm just doing it for the first time. Because my theory and my thoughts about it is if you already look like where you're trying to go, people are more prone to do work with you because you don't look terrified. Although that may not be, everybody's story. But for me, I'd rather look like it before I get there. So when I get there, I'm already prepared for it. I take the initiative to put everything I have into it. Anything I do, I give it my all because I don't know who's connected to what I'm producing. I don't know who's going to hear that song and is going to be blessed by it. I don't know who's going to read that chapter in the book and going to be blessed by it. I don't know. I don't know who's going to see a quote that I may have put up or some words of encouragement that I may put up on social media and may be blessed by it. But guess what? If it reaches one, I've done my job. If it reaches two, that's a bonus. If it reaches hundreds, thank you, Jesus. But for whatever it is, I'm going to give it my all because I never want to give God half when he gives me everything and all of him whenever I need it. The very thing that you've been waiting for and that you've been looking for can be on the other side of you taking that step. Meaning that you have to you can't worry about it. You can't worry about the fear of if I step, what's going to happen? Guess what? You won't know what's going to happen if you don't take the step. So all he's requiring of you is that you would take that step and make that initiative to do that which he's purposed you to do. And trust me, it's never an easy step. It's never an easy journey, but I promise you it will be worth it in the end. That's for sure. Because a lot of times I look back on things and I remember the stories like I shared in my book. If you don't already have my book, it's called Trusting God in the Process. You can get it on Amazon or on my website at myeshaprice.com. But I remember talking about my journey of being homeless and on the other side of that, losing my grandmother and eventually finding my husband. If I would have known that all that would have got me to that point, I would have signed up for that. Being homeless was never on my agenda. Losing my grandmother was definitely never on my agenda. But I knew I wanted to be married, but I didn't know what it would cost me. And even still today, sometimes, I process through and I look back on the things that I've experienced and I've gone through in life that's got me to this point. I'm like, Lord, I don't know how I made it, but I know it was nothing but his grace that got me through. And I just want to encourage you that guess what? Even in all of this, You got this. Even when it's discouraging, you got this. Even when you can't figure out your footing, you got this. There's days when I can't figure it out, but guess what? I learn how to weather the storm and keep it ticking. And sometimes it takes everything in me to get out the bed some days when I'm at my worst. But guess what? The moment I swing my legs around and I get out of that bed, I've took one step. And that one step keeps me moving and keeps me proceeding with that which he's given me. I would be lying if I told you that you're not going to have hurdles to cross. I would be lying if I told you that storms weren't going to rise. I would be lying if I told you that you're not going to lose people along the way. But when you're in high pursuit of the purpose of God for your life, you're going to lose some things. And guess what? If you're losing them, they were never meant to stay anyway. So thank God for the releasing of the baggage and the dead weight. Don't be mad because they're leaving. Be happy because he's taking the dead weight off of you. He's taking the burdens off of your shoulder, and he's allowing you to feel more free so that way he can get everything he needs out of you. You've been looking for an answer, but your answer that you're looking for is right in that step that you need to make. So all it requires of you today is just to make one step. Take that step towards that business. Take that step towards writing that book. Take that step towards putting yourself out there and taking the time to work on you. There's so much going on in the world, and it's really heartbreaking. We hear so much pain and anguish and heartbreak between school shootings and just the violence that is happening in our communities and the state of our government. But even in the midst of all of that, God is still good. He's still good. So today, I challenge you to take that one step, to make that one step towards your purpose. I was reading a quote by Albert Herbert, and it says, the best preparation for good work tomorrow is to do good work today. So I want you to go ahead and do that good work. So guess what? So that way tomorrow, you're one step closer to fulfilling your purpose and destiny on this earth. You're here to make an impact. You're here to leave a legacy. And God is calling you to take that step and make that impact. Thank you guys so much for joining in on the conversation on today. I appreciate you. I want you guys to like, share with your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, share on your page. Let someone know about the podcast as we continue to bring you great conversations with some great people that you probably would have never thought would be on here, some people that you never heard of. But guess what? Their stories are impactful. Follow me on social media. We're on Instagram under Myesha L. Price, on Facebook under Myesha Price Brand. But you can also follow things on my website, which is www.myeshaprice.com. To stay connected with everything that's going on and the new things that we have coming up, we want to make sure that we let you know so you can be a part of it and join in on any events that we have going on. Remember to always be you, love you, and see you. Until next time, have a great week.